And now let's bring on the Saltier, Adam Oslin. He is the host of Clipper Countdown, the halftime show, the post-game show. And since the Clippers have no games left, he is doing the Clipper podcast. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
That makes sense, right? Went 213 straight days of doing Clippers podcasts. That's how long it was, Fred. My streak was alive from October till what? April something? I don't know. What day is it? Is it Tuesday now? Okay, we're good. I've been doing a lot of these shows, so I don't even know what day it is, but I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, probably you needed a break from that, didn't you?
Not in that way, but sure. The Game 7 wasn't great. We're still reeling a little bit from that beatdown, but yeah, I've had a little bit of time to decompress now.
All right, Adam, and when you assess that, when it's all said and done and the Clippers basically laid an egg in Game 7, how do you sum up the season?
It's interesting because you have to say the regular season was a great success. It was. They won 50 games. They won 15 more games than most people thought they were going to win. They ended up being the 5 seed. I thought at best they could be the 6 seed. But then you lose the way you do in the fashion you do in a 7-game series that was winnable against the Denver Nuggets like that, and you don't even compete in that Game 7. It was highly embarrassing. The postseason portion of the season was a failure. You have to admit that. The Clippers were finally healthy. They had Kawhi. They had a lot of things going in their favor. So that part of it was a failure. So it's hard to kind of marry those two things. But I'll put it like this. The regular season lasts 5 months. The playoff season for them was 2 weeks. I still would say overall it was a successful year. It just left you wanting more, and it was a very disappointing ending. But look, if the Denver Nuggets go on to the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, then you start to look at it a little bit differently. Like the way I'm watching this series between them and OKC and looking how gassed a young OKC team is playing in Denver, I'm like, well, yeah, the Clippers would have had their issues there too as an older team. It makes sense, and Denver just has that championship DNA. They find ways to win, and that's a series that can end up going 7 here.
Yeah, it could. It could. So, Adam, where do the Clippers go from here now? So, as the offseason approaches, what do you think happens? What should happen with this team going forward?
Well, I don't think blowing it up is on the table because I don't know how much you'd get for Kawhi Leonard, and it's really a decision by James Harden whether or not he opts in or out of that player option, becomes a free agent, leaves the Clippers, or signs a 2-year deal to come back. They don't have a lot of control in that situation. I think for the most part, you got to run it back and improve around the edges and improve around the margins and get a better backup big and get a 4 so Kawhi can slide down to his natural position at the 3 and not have to be as physical out there with just how taxing that can be. I think a lot of this is going to look the same, but think of it this way. They won 50 games with just 37 games from Kawhi last year. This is the first offseason. He's entered the offseason healthy since 2020. He's not due to have surgery for once. He can actually go out there and train. So then maybe you get 50 or 55 games from Kawhi next season. Could you win over 50 games? Like, could you get to be a top 3 or top 4 seed in the Western Conference? Could you have home court in the first round this time around and have that Game 7 advantage at Intuit Dome instead? They're not in a terrible spot. You look at it, things were so close in the West right now. We're talking about Denver possibly beating OKC, which we thought was a cut above everybody else. The 2 seed lost in the first round. The Houston Rockets got bounced. The 3 seed lost in the Lakers in the first round. Like, it's a complete crapshoot with how close things are talent-wise in the Western Conference, where the first-round matchups feel like a second-round or a Western Conference type of matchup with how close the teams are and how competitive it can be. You just got to get in and have a little bit of luck on your side and find a way and get the path of least resistance to getting out of the Western Conference somehow. So I would say run it back, take your chances again, improve in other areas, get a better backup ball handler so you don't have to tax James Harden as much, who's going to be 36 this next season, and he led them in minutes this past year. I think that's problematic. You have to find a way to take some of the scoring load and passing burden off of him. There are ways to improve this team internally with just Kawhi playing more games, but then also just with having a better support system and better role players out there. I think that's what they're going to do most likely.
All right, and now let's flip across the hall and look at the Lakers. What do you see them doing?
Well, we know what the priority is for them. They have to get Mark Williams back. No, they have to get a big man in general. And now I see people talking about them trading Austin Reeves, and Bill Plaschke wrote that article the other day. Maybe that happens, but Austin Reeves is on such a team-friendly contract where he's only making, I think, $14 million this next season. That's so cap-friendly. Like, you have to match deals. What are you going to get for that? Like, I don't know if it's worth it because he's so, overplaying his deal right now. You're getting so much from him. I know he had a bad playoff series against Minnesota. People are putting way too much into that, though, honestly, where a lot of Lakers didn't play that well, and they got apparently a matchup that was not nearly as favorable as I thought it was going to be. I think most people picked the Lakers to win that series, but he's been really good. He's been considered a playoff riser before this season. He's had, I think, 9 playoff games out of his 26 where he's gone for 20 or more. So I'm not going to overreact to Austin Reeves having one bad playoff series there and say, oh, they should trade him or they have to trade him to get that big man. They don't. They didn't trade him. He wasn't in the deal for Mark Williams. So you don't have to move him. You still have that first-round pick. You still have Dalton Knecht, who's the more likely guy that gets moved. Rui Hachimura, maybe. I would try to find a way to hold on to Austin Reeves. Now, if you think there are fatal flaws with him next to Luka Doncic and that pairing doesn't work or they can't play as many minutes together out there on the court, that's a different conversation. But I would pump the brakes on moving one of your top 3 players and a guy that young that is still progressing and getting better and was blossoming the last 2 months of the season and really coming into his own. And he had some games where he was out there alone without LeBron, without Luka, where he was thriving. So I would try to hold on to him and just dangle that first-round pick and Dalton Knecht and maybe Rui Hachimura and somebody else to bring in that big man, whether it's Nick Claxton or somebody like that. I'm not giving up Austin Reeves. I'm not giving up on him this early.
Adam, we talked about it earlier about the lottery. What's your thoughts on that? And of course, there's LeBron on the Pat McAfee show and the tweets and all this, the laughing emojis. Is there anything in you that thinks there might be something going on with the lottery and, Cooper Flagg obviously going to the Mavericks now?
Here's the thing. I look at this as almost like I'm kind of a jerk about it. I look at it as like an IQ test. It's like how many people actually even know the process of how the draft lottery goes and how complicated it is. Like it would be really difficult to rig that thing. It's not David Stern reaching in and grabbing an envelope with a crease in it that's cold or whatever to give the Knicks Patrick Ewing. It's not the way it was back then in 1984 or 85, whenever that was. It's, 4 different lottery balls that all separately are coming out of that machine, putting together combinations of numbers, and depending on how good of odds you have as one of the worst teams in the league, you have more combinations to end up winning than other teams. And they already went in and flattened some of the odds anyways. It used to be, because this is to curb tanking, it used to be the team that had the worst record in the league had a 25% chance of getting the number 1 pick. Well, back in 2019, they changed that. So it used to be from the worst pick, the top 3 picks, basically, it was 25% chance. Second worst record in the league had a 20% chance. Third worst record in the league had a 15% chance. Now the top 3 worst teams in the league all have a 14% chance. So it's strengthened the odds for something like last night to happen, where the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs can jump teams that had worse records than them. And it's been happening the last 3 years, where Atlanta jumped up, I think, last season. Maybe it was Houston before that, or vice versa. So it was in play to happen. I know there was only a 1.8% chance of them getting the number 1 overall pick, but you know how many people would have to be paid off that are in the room watching the lottery take place to not squeal that this thing is rigged? Like, how would you pull it off? I'm just wondering, can somebody actually come up with a logical or rational way for them to pull this thing off to help out the Dallas Mavericks, who, by the way, everybody initially said, all the conspiracy theorists were like, oh, the NBA wants the Dallas Mavericks and their fans to be apathetic so they can move them to Vegas. And now they're saying they're helping the Dallas Mavericks get Cooper Flagg on a pat on the back for giving the Lakers Luka Doncic. Those two things don't work together. I thought they wanted them to go to Vegas. Now they're getting a generational player to keep the fans happy in Dallas. Which one is it? So these people with these tinfoil hats on, to me, it's very nonsensical. They haven't done the research of actually how this draft takes place now. It's far more complex and complicated to be able to rig. And there's so many instances you can point to, like, why didn't the Boston Celtics get Tim Duncan back in the day? Why did he go to San Antonio instead? When Boston, I think, had the better odds, they had Rick Pitino, and obviously they're a historic franchise that the NBA would benefit from being better and getting Tim Duncan. There's too many instances like that over the years to say, oh, it's all rigged, it's all fake. I know, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, and it's fun to think about, but it's not. I don't think there's any way to rig it right now. I just don't. Sorry, Fred.
Well, no.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think there's any way to rig it either. It was convenient, though, that he ended up in Dallas. That was convenient,
it's crazy.
Let's say.
It sets off the alarms for the conspiracy theorists, and it is a life preserver for Dallas and Nico Harrison, especially after the fan base turned on him and revolted, rightfully so, I think. And they have a chance, really, if they wanted to, they could make a move for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't think they're going to trade the pick, which is going to be Cooper Flagg, for him. But San Antonio might trade the second overall pick to bring in Giannis now. Like, the thing that is so alarming, really, to me of what happened last night is the West, which was already much better in the East, got even better somehow. You know, first of all, Jason Tatum, I feel terrible for him and what happened with the Achilles tear. He's one of my favorite players. He literally is just coming into his prime. He just turned 27. For this to happen is just devastating. But you look at Giannis is likely going to be traded, and they're not going to trade him to an Eastern Conference team. They're going to trade him to a team in the West, and the most likely teams are the OKC Thunder, the Houston Rockets, or the San Antonio Spurs. They all have the assets to do it. The West is getting even better and even tougher now. That's the ramifications of what happened last night. And this whole dream of let's just seed them 1 through 16, let's combine the East and the West. The problem is the Eastern Conference owners are never going to sign off on that. They have to vote on that. Why would they do it? It's a benefit. If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you're a decent team in the East and you know you're a playoff team, that's the easiest route to get to the NBA Finals or to get to a conference finals at least, being in the Eastern Conference. So those owners aren't going to vote for that. It's a dream that's never going to happen. So it is heavily weighted that the Western Conference is this bloodbath gauntlet murderer's row already, and it's getting even tougher now. I think there's a real good chance, guys, San Antonio ends up with Giannis Antetokounmpo, because if they trade the second pick and Stephon Castle, I think they get it done today. Like, I don't know if they can actually make that trade today because the playoffs are going on, but they can do it as soon as they're eligible to. I think that's a real possibility, and that is scary because that's a team that has had these assets. What I was worried about when they got De'Aaron Fox, well, the Sacramento Kings, who recently fired their GM, and they have an ownership issue going on there, they didn't bleed San Antonio for all that they were worth for them getting De'Aaron Fox. They left them with plenty of assets to still go out and make another huge move, and now San Antonio gets the number 2 pick to help them as well. They can certainly go out and get Giannis or make a Godfather offer for somebody if they want to. Maybe they get Giannis and bring in KD or something crazy. There are some teams, there are some sleeping giants right now that could turn into super teams really quick in the Western Conference. It's scary.
So you've eliminated the Lakers from this?
From getting Giannis?
Yeah.
I don't think they have the assets. Okay, let's say they give up their first-round pick in Austin Reeves. Well, their first-round pick isn't worth as much in the future, you would think, because they're going to have Luka Doncic on this team. That should make them relevant and should make them good for a while. So that's going to be a later-round first-round pick versus what San Antonio has to offer, which is the second pick in the draft this year. How do you beat that? I don't think they can. And Stephon Castle, honestly, I'm so high on him. Like, I think he's going to end up being a top 15 player in the league within 5 years. San Antonio has a better offer. The Lakers can't beat that. And I think there's something within the league right now because the Lakers ended up getting Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks didn't deal with anyone else and nobody else knew about this, that other teams are bitter about it. And they're not going to want to deal with the Lakers, or they're going to make them pay. There's going to be a tax doing deals with the Lakers. They're going to make them pay more because they're still upset with how things went down with Luka.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you make of the playoffs right now? Are you shocked at anything that's happened? I mean, I know Steph went out, but the Warriors kind of behind the eight ball a little bit in that series. But are you shocked by anything else? Indiana, New York Knicks, anything happening that surprises you?
I would say this. The Knicks are legitimately up 3-1 on the Boston Celtics. Like, when that Tatum injury went down last night, I think they were down 7 or 9 points, and the Knicks were already surging. They're legitimately up 3-1 on the defending champs, who I thought were most likely to go back-to-back, be the first team since the 2017-2018 Golden State Warriors to do it. They have them in hell, like with their defense and how they've ramped things up, and Jalen Brunson and just what a gamer he is and a playoff riser he is. They've been so impressive to me, and now the Mikal Bridges trade is starting to pay off. He didn't have that great of a regular season, but he's made some really big shots in key moments now. OG Anunoby as well. Karl Anthony Towns has had his moments too. Like, the New York Knicks, I think, are the likely team now to come out of the Eastern Conference. It looks like it's going to be a showdown between them and the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. And that feels like 1994 or something like that. It's a crazy matchup. Now, they played each other in the second round last year, and the Pacers beat them, but the Knicks were beat up. They were on their last legs. All these guys were out of the lineup. It is somewhat survival of the fittest with Steph going out, as you mentioned, in that series where I think they probably beat Minnesota if they were healthy, the Golden State Warriors. I haven't been that impressed with how Minnesota has looked against a Steph-less Golden State Warriors team. There have been some shots, obviously, and some big-time plays from Anthony Edwards, but they really could have lost that Game 3. Game 2 was close. What has Steph played? 13 minutes in this series? I know they're up 3-1, but they haven't, blown the Golden State Warriors out. I expect them to move on, but the Knicks have done this legitimately. I know they're going to get the rest of the series without Jason Tatum, and they likely close them out in the next game. But the Knicks are scary. The Indiana Pacers also, they got some health. They got some help, I should say, with some health luck with the Cavaliers missing their 3 key guys in Game 2 of that series, and now Donovan Mitchell is questionable for tonight's ball game. But they also have just out-executed them. Indiana, they've kind of flown under the radar. People don't remember, yes, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals just this last year. They lost to the Boston Celtics. Like, they weren't supposed to get there then, and they're still flying under the radar again this season. Like, they've been really good. So it's been interesting. I think the series obviously is OKC and Denver. As I mentioned earlier, this is at least going 6. It's likely, I think, going 7. I think OKC wins tonight. Denver wins Game 6. It goes to a Game 7 in Oklahoma City. That has been a spectacular series where you're seeing a young team that is trying to put on that championship DNA armor right now in OKC, and they had a really gritty victory in Game 4 on the road in Denver where they had to pull that one out late, and you wonder if that's that big teaching moment for them that they have needed to get over the hump with so many young guys that need more of that playoff experience. We'll see. Versus a team that has all the playoff experience, that has been in so many big games with the best player I still believe in the world in Nikola Jokic, who has struggled the last 3 games now. He looks tired. He looks a little bit gassed. You go 7 games the way they did against the Clippers, you should expect that. Versus OKC, who swept their first-round series. So that is a fascinating series that I expect to go 7 here. But everything else, it's a little bit marred by injuries, but the Knicks have done this legitimately, and they're a real threat to come out of the East. I would say, if you want my pick right now, it's OKC and the Knicks in the NBA Finals. I think that would be that would be something to watch. So, it's survival of the fittest. It's a war of attrition in the playoffs, as it has been for years now, where it's felt like whoever is the healthiest team ends up making it there and ends up winning it all. It could be the same thing again this year.
All right. Adam, good job. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for the info.
Love y'all. Good to be back on. Be good.